There's something people don't tell you when they talk about weight loss. They'll say things like, just eat less, move more, as if the journey is the same for everyone. But the truth is, there's a world of difference between being overweight and being obese. And unless you've lived inside an obese body, it's almost impossible to understand just how heavy that difference really is. I know because I've lived it. I used to weigh over 300 pounds at just 5'6". Back then, I had to come to terms with the fact that my path was not the same as someone who just wanted to lose 15 or 20 pounds. My journey was harder, slower, and at times unbearably lonely. But as I've chipped away at the weight, I've discovered parts of myself I never would have known existed. Patience, resilience, and a kind of courage that only comes when the world tells you no and you decide to keep going anyway. I'm still on this road. I've come far, but I still have a way to go. And that's why I can tell you the journey from obesity is a different one. So in this video, I want to share what obesity really is, not just by the numbers, but by the lived reality. And more importantly, why the journey to change looks so different for someone who is obese compared to someone who is just overweight. Because if you've been fighting this same battle and you feel like you're failing, I want you to know this. You're not failing. You're simply on a different road. Obesity is often defined with cold medical terms. Doctors will point to something called BMI, body mass index, and tell you that overweight is when you're between 25 and 29.9, and obesity begins when you cross 30. They'll even break it down into categories: class 1, class 2, class 3, each one heavier, each one more dangerous. But numbers on a chart don't tell the full story. They don't tell you what it feels like to wake up in the morning and dread putting on your shoes because you know bending down will leave you out of breath. They don't explain the shame you feel when you sit in a restaurant booth and realize the table is pressing into your stomach. They don't capture the silent panic of boarding a plane and wondering if the seatbelt will click shut. For someone who is overweight, yes, there may be discomfort, frustration, unhappiness with the mirror. But for someone obese, life itself begins to feel restricted. Movements that should be simple become complicated. Choices that should be small, like where to sit, what to wear, how to walk into a room, become decisions loaded with fear and embarrassment. And this is where the journeys split apart. Losing weight when you're overweight often means trimming the edges, cutting back on calories, finding a workout routine. But losing weight when you're obese, it requires rewiring your entire life. When I think about the difference, I go back to when I first realized I wasn't just overweight anymore. For years, I told myself, I just need to lose some pounds, I'll get back on track. But slowly the scale kept climbing. 200, 250, and then 300. At that point, it wasn't about tightening my diet or hitting the gym harder. My body hurt. My knees couldn't carry me through a jog. My back screamed when I tried to do exercises other people took for granted. Even walking became a struggle. 10 minutes left me sweaty, my chest pounding, my mind begging me to stop. And it wasn't just the physical limits. The mental weight was crushing. Obesity comes with a stigma that people who are overweight might not feel in the same way. Society looks at you differently. You're not just chubby or a little out of shape. You're judged as lazy, undisciplined, a lost cause. Every glance, every whisper, every awkward laugh you pretend not to hear reinforces the idea that you're broken. And over time, you begin to believe it. That's the invisible part of obesity, the shame that lives in your head. Overweight people can struggle with confidence, of course, but obesity, It buries you. It convinces you that you're trapped forever, that even if you try, you'll fail. And that belief can be more dangerous than the weight itself. So what does the journey look like? For someone overweight, the path can be relatively straightforward. You cut back on soda, you join a spin class, you meal prep, you see results. The body is still able to respond quickly, and the gap between where they are and where they want to be isn't so wide. But for someone obese, the journey must start with survival, not aesthetics. It starts with taking steps so small that to anyone else they look meaningless, but to us, they're monumental. For me, it wasn't about running a mile. It was about walking to the end of my driveway without stopping. It wasn't about lifting weights at the gym. It was about standing up more often instead of collapsing into a chair after every little task. It wasn't about cutting 1,000 calories in a day. It was about choosing water instead of soda once, then again, then again. The rules are different. The goals are different. The timeline is different. And the mindset, that's the hardest part of all, because when you're obese, you don't just fight your body. You fight your own mind. The voice that tells you it's pointless. The cravings that scream louder than your willpower. The exhaustion that sets in not just from the weight, but from the cycle of trying, failing, trying again, and failing again. And yet, this is where I've learned the most, because every time I've stood back up after falling, I've proven to myself that the fight isn't over. The truth is, obesity demands a different kind of patience. For someone overweight, weight loss might take weeks or months. For someone obese, it can take years. Years of slow progress, of plateaus that last longer than you ever imagined, of victories so small they're invisible to anyone else but mean the world to you. I remember stepping on the scale after weeks of effort and seeing only 3 pounds gone. At first, I felt defeated, but then I realized those 3 pounds meant I didn't quit. It meant my body was moving, however slowly, in the right direction. And that's the kind of victory an obese person learns to celebrate. Because if we don't, we give up, and giving up is the only real failure. So if you're listening to this and you're obese, let me tell you what I've learned. Your journey is not about perfection. It's about persistence. It's about showing up on the days when you feel hopeless, about forgiving yourself when you slip, about choosing again and again to take the smallest step forward instead of standing still. Your rules will be different. You may need therapy to untangle the emotions tied to food. You may need to clear your house of temptations, to build an environment that supports you instead of sabotages you. You may need to start with nothing more than walking, stretching, breathing, and that's okay, because those small steps are the foundation of change. And above all, you need to stop comparing your journey to someone else's. Their finish line is not yours. Their pace is not yours. Their battles are not yours. Obesity is a heavier road, but that only means you're carrying a strength most people will never have to develop. I'm still in this fight myself. I don't speak as someone who has finished the journey, but as someone still walking it, still stumbling, still learning how to rise after each fall. And if you're walking this road too, I want you to know you're not alone. Obesity isn't just extra weight. It's a different kind of journey, a harder one, yes, but also one that, if you keep going, will reveal a deeper strength inside you than you ever thought possible. If this message resonated with you, I invite you to walk this road with me. Subscribe to the channel, not because I have all the answers, but because I'm committed to sharing this journey. The setbacks, the small victories, the truths most people don't talk about. Together, we can build a space where obesity isn't a sentence but a starting point for transformation. Your story isn't over, it's just beginning.